Numbers are a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we trust numbers, and I know that there are some numbers people in this congregation. Numbers feel real. Numbers make things feel more real. Numbers are cold, hard facts we can trust. Numbers do not lie. On the other hand, and I've seen research supporting this, numbers shrink our empathy. When we are looking at numbers, we become a little bit more hard-hearted. It's harder to see a person through numbers. It's hard to see people through numbers. A number is a collection of abstractions. And we can choose to care or not care. That is different. That is different from a story where we see a person, where we meet a person, where we face a person. And so, there's this choice. When I was a fundraiser, the choice was between numbers and stories, and you always chose stories. The problem is sometimes you need the numbers. Sometimes you need to get a picture of the numbers. Sometimes you need to know the scale of something. So I am going to risk this double-edged sword and share some numbers with you. I promise that I'm not going to do this with every sermon through this series, but I want you to get a sense of scale. And numbers are a good way to do that. According to Feeding America, in Clinton County, there are 6,160 people who face hunger. And that's about 13.3% of all of the people in the county. Those people need about $4 million more per year to meet their food needs, or about $649 per person. About 385,130 Iowans face hunger out of all of Iowa, and that's about 12.5% of all Iowans. So expanding our geography, we have more hungry people. 120,220 of those are children. That's about 16.7% of all Iowan children. And those people need about $248 million more per year to meet their food needs. That's about $644 per person. So roughly the same as per person in Clinton County, just on a larger scale. We can go even bigger. There are about 47 million Americans who face hunger. And that's about 14% of the American population. About 13 million of those are children. And that's about 20%, a fifth of all American children face hunger. Those people need about $32 billion more per year to meet their food needs, which sounds like a lot, but it's a big number of people. That's about $660 per person. We can go even bigger. These numbers are from 2021, so things have changed a bit, and this is according to Oxfam. As many as 828 million people in the world face extreme and or chronic hunger. Extreme hunger is the kind of hunger where you are malnourished, where you just aren't getting the nutrients that you need in order to live. And chronic hunger, of course, is hunger that goes on day after day, week after week, month after month. That is about 10% of the world's population. And it would cost about $370 billion over 10 years to change global farming, logistics, and politics to end these kinds of hunger, as well as ongoing support. It is a big problem with big numbers, and it would require a big solution. That's the thing about hunger. It is a big problem. It has big numbers, and in the midst of those numbers, it can be hard to see the people. And in fact, those numbers themselves can just be overwhelming. How do you solve a problem for thousands, for hundreds of thousands, for millions of people? How do you find millions or billions or hundreds of billions of dollars? How do you remake the global food network from how food is produced to how it is processed to how it is moved around the world to how people cook to the resources that people have for cooking? How do you change all of that to solve such a huge, giant problem? And it can be easy in the midst of all of that to say, well, it's not my problem. I'm not hungry. I had a good, healthy breakfast, and I've got plans for a good, healthy lunch, and I've got plans for a much less healthy dinner. I'm unlikely to be hungry tomorrow. I've got food in my cabinets. I've got food in my fridge. I've got food in my freezer. I have food to last for days. I don't go shopping again for like a week. And if something happened, I could order out. I could get the burrito taxi to bring me food. It can be easy, looking at those numbers, to say, I don't see the people behind those numbers, so it is not my problem. It can be easy, in fact, to say, if you are hungry in Clinton County, you just need to work harder. Train harder, get a better job, you'll have more money, you'll have that $600 a year that you need, and then you can buy the food that you need. And the same for Iowa, and the same for the United States, and maybe not the same for the world. It's a bit more complicated, but surely there's something that can be done that keeps it not being my problem. Or maybe it's overpopulation. Maybe there just isn't enough food. Maybe it's impossible to feed this number of mouths. Maybe there is nothing we can do. So the best we can do is get enough for us and our friends, us and our community, and make sure we're okay and they can be on their own. After all, I know I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, but surely you don't mean someone halfway around the world is my neighbor. Or someone on the other side of the county, or the other side of the state, or the other side of America, or the other side of town. It can be easy in the face of those numbers to find an excuse to give up. In our reading today, the Israelites have escaped from slavery in Egypt. They are in the wilderness. They are on their way to a land of milk and honey, and as usual, they are complaining. They grabbed what they could on their way out of Egypt, but now there are a bunch of them, and they are in the middle of nowhere, and there is not food to eat. You can only carry so much, only so much fits in the coolers. So they go to Moses, the guy who led them out of Egypt, the person whose fault this is, and they say, we're hungry. There's no food around here. I don't know if you've noticed. There are no rest stops on the road to the land of milk and honey. There are no highway oases. There's no Panda Express. There's no kosher deli. So what are we supposed to do? And Moses goes to God and says, God, what are we supposed to do? And God does what God does. God provides. Bread from heaven, manna that will be on the ground when they get up in the morning. Collect what you need. Don't gather extra. Don't take too little. Take the amount that is appropriate for you and those in your tent. Gather it up and save it, and then eat it. It will not last until morning. This is your daily bread. And don't worry, when we get to the Sabbath, the day before, there will be twice as much, and then you can keep some over, and it'll be okay. You'll still get a day off. You won't have to gather every day, but take what you need and eat it. And if everybody does that, there's going to be enough and more than enough. And so the people gather it. The people go out in the morning and they gather the manna and they put it in their jars and they put it in their tents and they eat it. But some of them do that thing we all do. They worry. They think, there was enough today, but will there be enough tomorrow? We'll save some just in case. Maybe we'll even gather a little extra. Maybe we'll hoard a bit for ourselves. And that way we can be sure that tomorrow when we go out, if there isn't enough for us, we still have enough for us. We've kept it. And when they get up the next day, that manna they have collected is gross and wormy and not suitable for eating. This is how the bread of heaven works. This is how daily bread works. You take enough for yourself, and if everybody does that, there is enough and more than enough. And you don't hoard it in your kitchen. You don't fill up the cabinets with things you're not going to eat and fill up the fridge with extra just in case and pack the freezer full of ice cream for next year. Because if you do that, all you're doing is collecting food that will rot away, that won't last. And then, all this stuff that there was enough and more than enough of for everyone to enjoy, there will be some portion that nobody gets to enjoy. And if there's some that nobody gets to enjoy, that means that there is someone who doesn't have enough to enjoy. The nature of manna is that it's a distribution thing. Take enough for today, and then tomorrow take enough for tomorrow. And the day after that, take enough for the day after that. And if you keep doing that, O Israelites, there will be enough and more than enough for everyone. I think that might be true of everything. It is a possibility that the world that God has created, that the world that God sustains, that the world that keeps going under the power of God has enough and more than enough, not just of food, but of everything. But that we keep running into this problem where some of us hoard what we can take. We grab as much as we can, we take it back for ourselves and for our families and for our friends and for our descendants. And because we've taken so much, there is not enough for someone else. And if we had just not worried, if we had just trusted in God's design, if we had just had faith and left that over here, we would have enough, and they would have enough. It is possible, and I have faith that it is true, that there is enough and more than enough for everyone, and that is true of everything. There is enough food for everyone if we can get the food to everyone. There's enough water for everyone if we can get the water to everyone. There's enough health care for everyone if we can get the health care to everyone. There's enough housing for everyone if we can get the housing to everyone. There are enough vaccines for everyone if we can get the vaccines to everyone. There's enough freedom for everyone if we can get the freedom to everyone. There's enough power for everyone if we can get the power to everyone. And I mean that both in the sense of electricity and, power. The promise of God, and maybe a fundamental part of this Christian worldview that people talk about, is that idea that there is enough and more than enough. That we don't even have to go towards austerity to do that. That we don't all have to live in yurts. That we don't all have to eat some strange paste or kibble. That we can have humble feasts and still have enough for everyone. We just have to do it. We just have to trust in God. We just have to trust in God's design. We just have to have faith. $370 billion, the amount that it would take to end extreme and chronic hunger in the world. That's about 98.5% of Larry Ellison's net worth. Larry Ellison right now, or at least when I made this slide, was the richest person in the world. He is the founder of Oracle, which does software. It's most of his fortune, but he would still have about $8 billion, which feels like plenty. It's about 78.5% of what American companies and governments have invested in AI over the last 10 years. Artificial intelligence, large language models, that thing that they keep adding to software that makes software worse. It's about 44% of the US military budget for 2025. About 12.5% of the estimated 10-year value of the tax cuts in that big bill that got passed. About 9% of the value of NVIDIA, a computer company. They make GPUs, many of which power the AI that is making all of our software worse. There's more than one benefit from approaching it from this angle. About 0.3% of the global gross domestic product, of the value of all of the goods and services produced in the world, and about 0.1% of global wealth. These big numbers, when we start dealing with a ton of big numbers, suddenly don't feel so big. Because when you start thinking about portions of big numbers, you start getting little numbers. Little things that feel like maybe, just maybe, if we made a decision, they might be doable. There are, in fact, 21 centibillionaires in the world. 21 people and families who have at least $100 billion in wealth, and several who have multiple hundreds of billions of dollars in wealth. And while solving extreme hunger and chronic hunger are big problems, I am willing to bet that if those same minds who came up with businesses that could make them hundreds of billions of dollars, if those same minds put their energy towards solving hunger, I'll bet they could do it. And if they put their money towards solving hunger, all the better. It is a possible thing to do. But we can bring it closer to home. 6,160 people facing hunger in Clinton County need about $4 million more per year, and distributed evenly across the entire population of Clinton County, that's about $87 per person per year. Now I know, some of those people are the people who are hungry. Some of those people don't have an extra $87. Some of those people are in Fieldstone. Some of those people are in school. Some of those kids don't have jobs. They don't have $87, but I'm betting that we could come up with a plan to get the amount that we need to feed the people who are hungry in Clinton County. And if we can do it in Clinton County, we can do it in Iowa. And if we can do it in Iowa, we can do it in America if we say, I only need enough, and maybe a bit more than enough. And if we share, then everybody can have enough and more than enough. I'll bet we could do it. I'll bet we could feed people. I'll bet we could feed the kids across the street at the school. I'll bet we could feed the old folks in their homes across town. I'll bet we could just feed people who are hungry, who want something to eat, who don't know where their next meal is coming from, who don't right now have enough for today. And this is the point that I want to make, because this point is going to come up again and again throughout this series as we talk about our neighbors. Hunger, the existence of hunger, the reality of hunger, just like every other social problem, the reality of hunger is a choice. We could do otherwise. And I know, I can already feel the objection coming. I know that we often think that it is the choice of those who are hungry, who aren't working hard enough, who aren't saving enough, who aren't spending right, who aren't doing enough, but it is at least also, the choice of those of us who have too much. I have food in my cabinets that is not going to get eaten. I have food in my fridge that is gonna spoil. I have food in my freezer that eventually is not going to be usable anymore. And some of these are big problems, and some of these are little problems. The little problems are that I buy too much, and the big problems is that you can only buy packages of like 1,000 tortillas at a time. We could reorganize. We could change, and dare I say it? Dare I say it? Christ calls us to change. Jesus tells us to change. Do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got problems of its own. Deal with today. Take your daily bread. Share with each other. There is enough and more than enough. Spread it around. And so the question that sits out there, the thing that becomes the problem, the thing that is hard, and I know it's hard, is to imagine how we do that. But I have faith. I have faith in a God who makes sure that there's enough and more than enough. I have faith in you who are here today to hear good news, who love good news, who want good news. I have faith in the folks out there who maybe haven't heard the good news yet, who maybe need a reminder of the good news. I have faith that if we put our minds to it, we can do it. We can end hunger in DeWitt, in Clinton County, in Iowa, in America, in the world. We just have to put our faith in the God who makes sure that there's enough and more than enough. And if we do that, if we do that, what a wonderful, full, and sated world that will be. A world of a holy feast for everyone.